tied up in Houma, and I've just been working on our route for tomorrow. What we're going to try and do is make a really long run. We're going to get up real early in the morning, back out of the Houma Municipal Marina, and the plan is to try and get all the way up to past Boomtown Casino. Thankfully, these folks we met here in the anchorage right in front of us when we came in let us know that the Boomtown Casino is not letting people tie up anymore, and it showed the same on Active Captain. So with that and some information they provided us related to the locks and the fact that they're closing for commercial traffic, we're really going to try and push all the way through, and we're going to probably go at dark, but the idea is to get all the way up to the Seabrook Marina, which means we have to go from Houma past Boomtown Casino, which is further than we went last time we did this, and then take it all the way up through the Harvey Canal, down the Mississippi River, through the Industrial Lock, and then ultimately up the Internavigational Channel toward Lake Pontchartrain, and stop just before Pontchartrain in the Seabrook Marina.
The girls entertained themselves tonight by making a little blanket and towel tent setup in the salon. They had a blast for this for hours. You know what they say about the best laid plans, so our alternator belt is loose and it looks like we're going to have to fix this. We had to pull back up to the dock after leaving this morning.
Well, not good, folks. We got up early this morning, we backed out of the Houma Marina, and as I throttled up I could hear a belt squeaking, so I thought, okay, it's just a belt, let me pull back in real quick and tighten it. Went to tighten it, and unfortunately the welded nut on the front side of the alternator bracket has a stripped thread, and it just would not tighten up.
So you can see here, I just went ahead and got a longer bolt from Lowe's. I put it all the way back through even the spot that was stripped, and then put a nut on the front. Deb was able to help by going into the engine room, and she kind of held a breaker bar along it to tighten it up.
I ended up having to wait until Lowe's was open, take a cab over to Lowe's, buy a new bolt. Bit of a pain in the neck, but we've got it working. Unfortunately, it's putting us about 3.5 hours behind, which now means that arrival that we were thinking was going to happen just after dark is going to be late tonight. But we've got to push for it, because if we don't actually get through there tonight, one of those locks is closed tomorrow, and I just don't want to run into a challenge with that. So we definitely have a crazy busy schedule today. We're staying at the downtown Houma Municipal Marina today. I'll turn the view around. The kids are playing on a playground that's right here at the boat, and now I'll just use the other side of the camera.
While I waited on the taxi driver, me and the kids and Deb went on out to the little playground and just played for a little while. It was a good time, and they enjoyed themselves for sure.
2 against 1 on the seesaw. Oh.
This was actually pretty cool. I didn't think the iPhone would take such a good slow motion video. Well, we finally got our problems fixed. We're out on the waterway and on our way, and that's a nice thing to have happen.
I'm afraid there's no way to avoid that. It's a lot of lightning, a lot of thunder, a lot of rain. Front came by, it was probably blowing 25 or 30, but it was only lasted for 5 or 6 minutes, and now it's just a steady 10 knots or so of breeze. Of course, in typical sailor fashion, it's 10 knots on the nose. I can't even throw a sail out and enjoy a little bit of motion here, which I would take at this point, because it's already now showing a 10 p.m. arrival at Seabrook Marina, and that's assuming no delays at any of the locks or bridges, which is absurd to even think is possible.
I should talk just a little bit about what the route actually looks like today. So we leave Houma right down in this particular area, go up the ICW and come on down. We do have to contact a pontoon bridge. From there we go across what they call the Wax River Inlet, which is coming up right here a little bit, and then we have another lift bridge we need to contact for an opening. We travel a bit to the north, and we kind of come around the south side of Lake Salvador, in which time we start to head northeast at this point. As we come around this side of Lake Salvador and start to head back up to the north, there's actually a couple of anchorage options. One is not very good right in this particular area, and then we were actually really considering a very small anchorage right on the corner of this. There's a small island right here. Unfortunately, there's an airboat tour company that has their main headquarters right here. So there's a lot of airboats that kind of fly by. After about 6 p.m. they stop. So we considered this as a secondary option, but we really wanted to try and get all the way through the locks in New Orleans. So we got to this point and decided to go ahead and press on. We kind of continued up the ICW, heading east again, start to head north, and we go through some pretty amazing floodgates. These are ginormous, and they're for any kind of hurricane, and they started building them after Katrina, but they're monstrous. 11 gigantic diesel engines and diesel generators that run 11 giant pumps. So at this point we start to go north from the floodgates, and this is where we're now starting to get into a pretty industrial area. We can cut off to the right, which is the Algiers alternate route, which takes you over to a different route to the Mississippi River, or you can head northbound into what's called Harvey Canal number 1. This is a very industrial area. It goes northbound past Boomtown Casino, and it goes into the Harvey Lock, which is truly an elevation lock, and it controls the water depth difference between the Mississippi River and the ICW and surrounding area. So once you go through the Harvey Lock, you actually are in the Mississippi River, and the cool thing is we kind of go to the right here on this screen, which is downriver, right by the Crescent City, so right past the French Quarter and Jackson Square, make this sharp right-hand bend, and then ultimately we're going to turn northbound again into what's called the Industrial Lock. Industrial Lock, again, is an elevation lock and a flood control lock. From there we go northbound, and you can either turn eastbound and head toward what they call the Wrigley's and ultimately Mississippi on the ICW, or northbound through what's called the Inner Navigational Channel, I believe, and ultimately toward Lake Pontchartrain, which is where we're going to stop before we get to Pontchartrain at Seabrook Marina. Well, I didn't have a whole lot of footage from the rest of the afternoon, but I did turn on the camera as we got into the Harvey Locks here. So as you prepare to go to the Harvey Locks, there's definitely a bit of a routine you have to know. You've got to reach out to the bridges on channel 13 or 14. Always check your guidebook to see specifically which ones. And this particular one times their openings along with the bridge. So you contact the bridge on channel 14, and I'm sorry, the locks on channel 14 and the bridges on 13, I believe it was. And they all coordinate an opening. They do need to route you in and out. So you are going through these with commercial traffic, which means you're subject to what time they tell you you're going to go. For example, when we looked online, this particular lock was showing a 21+ hour wait. Now, luckily, we called them on the mobile number at the wall, the phone on the dock wall, and somebody said, well, if you're a pleasure boat, give us a call when you get here and we'll see if we can work you in sooner. I was really pleasantly surprised. When we actually got to the Harvey Lock, we contacted them. We waited about 6 or 7 minutes for the opening. That was it. You can see at this point it is already dark at night, so we're definitely getting a bit of a late start, given that we still have to go down the Mississippi River. So the idea is when you contact the lock operator, he lets you know whether or not he wants you on the port or the starboard side. In our case, we weren't going through with anybody else, but I've gone through these before where they'll put a tug in, for example, and you'll tie up behind the tug, or typically behind. I've not been in front of them before. But they basically tell you to pull in and go to one of these openings you can see in the wall. I'm not sure if you can see them over on the right-hand side of the screen, and we just passed one on the left side, but there's openings that have some cleats in there. So we just had one spring line ready to go and had it hooked to a midship cleat. We had lines ready on the bow and the stern just in case we needed them. But once we get in here, we will hook up to this particular cleat, leave it in forward, idle, and just let ourselves sort of hold up against the spring line. But you do have to be prepared to pull in or let out the line. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up because this truly is an elevation change, and you'll get a sense for just how how high up we end up going. But it's a pretty painless operation, and if you do this, you just have to remember that you absolutely must make sure any crew members have life jackets on when they go in these. That's a requirement. So once you get the okay from the lock operator via the radio, you just drop your line and go ahead and throttle on out of here. And the good news is the current and the turbulence isn't bad at all. What I was most concerned about at this point, quite honestly, was the fact that I was getting ready to pull out into the Mississippi River at night and just didn't know what kind of traffic was out there or what exactly it was going to be like. I was a little bit worried about potentially floating debris that I might not see, etc. So we are now pointing toward the opening. We're coming kind of off the wall here and heading out into the Mississippi. Those are kind of some of the lights of the west side of New Orleans. I guess it would be sort of west of the Garden District if I'm thinking of the right area. And here, this is kind of interesting. So I mentioned that you're worried about what kind of traffic is out there. This is a perfect example. You can see the ship crossing in front of our bow here. He's going upriver. And as we pull out here, you'll see a fairly large one coming downriver. So we pull out and right away, try and stay very close to the starboard bank because there is quite the boat coming downriver at us. It really is pretty majestic looking. There's all this old, folklore, if you will, about the Mississippi River, but there's something pretty neat about going in here. You see, we just sort of exited out along the banks of the Harvey Canal. You can see downtown in the distance as we turn and start heading downriver. I wish the camera did a little bit better at night, but this beautiful view of the twin span bridges there that we'll go under here in a moment. And you're starting to see a little bit of bounce here from the wake of that ship that had just gone by. Obviously we were a bit nervous, so we looked behind us, making sure that we could see where the boat was behind us. You can see off to the left here, there's actually the Riverwalk near the convention center, near downtown, a little bit closer view of it. It was really a great sail. So join us next time as we actually get to our marina, go through the industrial lock, through a few more bridges, across Lake Pontchartrain, and eventually finish out this particular cruise. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for weekly updates and like this video.